This time in Goss's Garage, we have Mr. Rick Robinson from American High Performance. They're in Wharton, Virginia, and he is the high performance guru. So, Rick, welcome back to Goss's Garage.
Thank you, Pat.
All right, now, one of the things that probably is as confusing to the average motorist, much less the high performance buff, as any part of an automobile is gasoline.
Absolutely. You go to the pump and here's all these numbers in front of you, and what do they mean?
All right, now, there's this common myth that if I take my car that's designed for 87 octane fuel and I put 93 in it, that I'm going to get more power, more gas mileage, a cleaner engine, and all this stuff. Not true.
Not true.
All right. Explain that.
Yeah, octane rating is really a measure of the ability of a fuel to resist detonation, or resist spontaneous combustion, so to speak. In the cylinder of your engine, as the piston comes up and compresses this fuel-air mixture into the combustion chamber, it's reaching extremely high pressures and temperatures as well. And with every fuel out there, at some point you'll reach the point where that fuel will self-ignite before the spark plug says, let's go. And that's the measure of detonation resistance or anti-knock resistance, and that's where the octane rating comes from. The specific power available from the fuel changes relatively little between 87, which is the typical regular gas that you find, and 93 or 91, whichever your particular flavor of high test is. It's its ability to resist detonation is what the number indicates.
All right, now, one of the things, of course, is that when you have a car that requires 91 or 93, if you drop down to 87, you may see a decrease in fuel economy and also in performance.
Absolutely. Your engine is designed to run on a particular fuel. The cars that require the high test fuels are the cars that have high compression motors in it. The more I compress that fuel-air mixture into the combustion chamber and the higher the pressures and temperatures I reach before I ignite it, the more power I can extract from that charge of fuel. But that has to do with the design of the motor, not the fuel itself. What I want from the fuel is I don't want it to ignite before I want it to ignite. So that's where the anti-knock rating comes into play. The fuel itself is not going to increase the amount of power. It's what I do with the fuel that gives me the extra power. If you don't change your car that's running regular 87 octane fuel, you're not going to get anything more out of that 93 than the 87, except a little lighter wallet.
All right, now the one thing that I've noticed is that you put too low an octane in the car, and all cars today have knock sensors. And in order to compensate for knocking, that's that sound we used to get that was kind of like, back in the day, it was like having a bunch of marbles in a tin can rattling around under the hood. Mm-hmm. Long before we can hear it, the knock sensor can hear the beginnings of that knocking, and it retards the ignition timing to compensate for it.
Correct. Correct. There's two things that'll make it knock. One is the fuel spontaneously combusts, or your timing advance is set too high and it ignites the fuel before the piston really gets to the point where it can sustain that movement without getting banged on by this explosion that's going to happen. Now, we're kind of speaking in generalities here because every car is designed a little different in today's modern cars, where we're trying to get more energy out of less fuel and get more economy but still retain the power. Manufacturers are doing a lot of tricks in the motor to both increase that compression and extract more energy while not experience this detonation and knocking and damage the motor. And one of the things they do is add knock sensors to them, and virtually every modern engine today has those knock sensors on it to sense that detonation in the higher compression motors and pull the timing advance back to try to prevent it.
And when you pull the timing back, retard the timing, performance goes down, fuel economy goes down, and you didn't gain anything.
Absolutely. When we're tuning high-performance motors, the first thing we're going to do is tune the fuel-air ratio and get that where we want it across the entire power band of the engine. Once we've got that stabilized and we know we're in a safe zone, then we start working with timing advance, and we just keep adding timing advance and adding timing advance and watching the results on the dyno as power increases until we reach the point where it doesn't increase anymore. And that's your optimum point, and typically we'll come back a couple of degrees from there to make sure that we're safe, and now we've got the best power we can get out of that particular engine combination.
All right, so the other thing now, when we're looking at some of those things here in the shop, we use an exhaust gas analyzer, and when we reach a critical point, we can see the hydrocarbons go up, and we can see the oxides of nitrogen start climbing and things like that.
And that's what your computer's doing as you're driving down the road. It's using the input from the oxygen sensor, looking for oxygen in the exhaust. And if there's oxygen left over in the exhaust, and that meant I didn't have enough fuel. I'm running too lean, and it starts adding more fuel to try to get to that optimum mixture. If it runs lean, it's going to run hot, and it's going to have a tendency to detonate as well.
Okay, now I guess if you were giving people some rules to buy gas by, that would be to use what the vehicle manufacturer recommends.
Yeah, buy what the manufacturer recommended. That's what your engine was designed to run on. And if you put something else in it, it's not going to be running at its optimum point. And again, we say this in generalities. If I've got an engine that was designed to run on 87, but it's also pushing the limits of 87, and it's using the knock sensors to protect itself, it's at load where this is typically going to happen. So if I'm taking off on a trip and I'm towing the camping trailer, across the Appalachians, I'm going to be under a lot of load. I could benefit possibly from adding a little higher octane fuel in there to prevent that knock under load and give me the power that I need to get to pull it. But that's only because I'm preventing it from pulling that spark back, not because I'm getting more bang out of the fuel.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Rick, I know there are other rules when it comes to fuel for race cars and things like that, but hopefully you'll come back and visit with us again, and we can talk about it on the next show.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And how can people get in touch with you?
You can find us on the web at AmericanHighPerformance.com, also our web store at AmericanHighPerformance.biz, and reach us by telephone at 703-339-7412.
And if you have a question or a comment, drop me a line at goss-garage.com.